we hear you. And so I quit my job in May, and we've been working steadily on this since then. And when it all came together, all these pieces, we could hardly contain ourselves.
The Ready Life, into the country.
Hi, I'm Lisa Meisner.
And I'm Nick, her husband.
Welcome back to the Ready Life podcast, where we show you how to make your home and family as independent as possible for basic necessities like water, heat, food, and the power that most of us depend on for these things. Today, we are doing a very special podcast because we have a really big announcement. And no, I'm not pregnant, but it's something that's been a dream of ours for years. In fact, for a very long time, and it's called the Ready Life Academy.
That's right. I've got a story for you. It all started when we made our move to an off-grid independent homestead almost 25 years ago. We loved it from the start, and after several years of experimenting and learning, we connected with a new friend who was starting a project to help city folks move to the country. And he said he needed some practical resources to send folks to, and he wondered if we might be willing to use our construction background and experience with off-grid living and things like that to help others with the practical aspects of doing this. Little did we know where this was going to lead back then. And unfortunately, there were only so many people who we could actually physically set up in the country with an independent homestead. But we got to thinking that if we produced some kind of resource material, we could teach folks how to do it for themselves. Why not do a video,
That's right.
That's kind of where it started. And the first one, way back at the tail end of the VHS era, and we quickly transitioned to DVDs. And over the course of a summer, we produced our first DVD. It was a detailed overview of what you need to look for in a piece of land or a home in order to have an independent homestead. And the need was immense. It really was. And over the next year, that DVD took off like fire.
For those of you who've been with us for a while, you probably know that one. It's called Go Forward.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very beautiful, well-done video.
And that was what kind of kicked this all off for us many, many years ago. Folks started asking for more. They wanted to learn about gardening, for one thing. And we kept hearing about this gardener named Bob Jorgensen, who lived deep in the mountains of North Carolina. And Bob had a very self-reliant homestead set up, and he'd been living this way for decades. So we connected with him, and he graciously agreed to share his knowledge in a set of DVDs over a period of years. It took a while. And we ended up filming him teaching about starting a garden from scratch, taking soil samples and analyzing the soil, so that you could add the right amendments, planting, caring for the plants, composting, growing small fruits like berries and grapes, even grafting your own fruit trees and pruning fruit trees and a lot more.
He was a wealth of information.
Yeah, he was. And he, we were able to tap into that information and help him share it with a lot of people. I mean, he knew a lot about a lot of different things. And one of those things was developing a spring head, how to develop a spring into an independent water source. And so we filmed him teaching that. And another thing was he had the most extensive collection of non-electric hand tools that I think I've ever seen in my life. It was phenomenal. And so we also filmed him demonstrating these tools and how to use them and things like that. And sadly, Bob passed to his rest a number of years ago. He's greatly missed. But his practical knowledge lives on and continues to help so many. And then I think it was about that time that we met some folks who had lived with the Amish for a while. and they had become quite the experts on wood cook stoves. So much so that they'd started a business selling wood cook stoves. And this was something that we wanted to learn more about for ourselves. And so we visited them and ended up producing a DVD on what you need to know about wood cook stoves, including the choice of wood, how to cook and bake with a wood cook stove, because that was something that a lot of folks were asking about. How to can with a wood cook stove, even how a wood cook stove can be your hot water heater in your home. And while we were on the topic of wood cook stoves and heating with wood and that sort of thing, we realized the importance of knowing how to prevent and deal with a fire when you're in a remote area, because it was something that we wanted to know. Once again, it was information that we were wanting to know for ourselves, because we were in a remote area. And when you're in an area that has a volunteer fire department, it's going to be a little while before they can get there. And that's nothing against them. It's just the facts of life, that it's going to take time for them to get to the station and then get to your house and all that. So it just so happened that an old friend of ours was a fire chief in a rural fire district deep in the mountains. And so he and his son taught a class on how to prevent and deal with fires in your country home. And we produced a whole DVD with them on this topic of, going around a homestead and how do you prevent stuff and put fire out if you end up with one and things like that. Very fascinating stuff that we wanted to know. And I think it was not too long after that we were struggling with our garden. And I know this is something that we've heard from a lot of folks over the years, struggling with issues with growing. It's very dynamic, the whole growing experience. There's lots that can happen. And
yeah, it seems like you start off and your first year, everything is, grows really well and does well. And then the second year, maybe almost as wonderful. But then by the third year, it seems like things start to decline.
Yep, that was our experience. I know we
experienced that too.
That's right. And so that was kind of where we were at. And we just didn't know what to do about it. So we took a 5-day intensive hands-on gardening class at Berea Gardens in West Virginia with Bob Gregory. And it was an amazing experience. We were so impressed with what we had learned there. It was just, getting into the science of the soil and all of this it just made sense of a lot of things. And so we asked him if he wanted to distill this extensive class into a DVD set. And he said yes. And so later on, we made a trip back to West Virginia and ended up producing a 6 DVD set with him on that. And, basically something that would take a basic gardener and equip them with the advanced skills they need to take their garden to the next level. And it was mind-blowing what we learned there. And, another thing in our climate was growing in the cold, or winter. And what do you do? Because we have a short growing season here, and we wanted to know about that. And we were already doing some filming on a farm where they grow year-round, and so they showed us some tips and showed us around their farm, and we filmed it, how they grow year-round. And that was another eye-opening experience of how they could keep harvesting year-round, even through the winter. Fascinating stuff. And then another area that we struggled with, if you're seeing a common theme here, it's, we ran into issues and things that we didn't know about. And thankfully we had a network that we were able to connect with and learn from people who were experienced in these things. So another area was our orchard. It was struggling, was not doing so well. And we met a experienced agriculturalist who shared with us a revolutionary way of planting new fruit trees. And he showed us how he had planted these, just as an example. He'd done many other places, but just this one example where he'd planted 2 trees side by side, and one was with this method and the other was with the standard method. And the one with the method he was teaching us was like, I forget how, it was like twice the height, and in mass, I forget how much more it was in mass, but it was
significantly bigger and taller
and healthier too.
More lush.
Right. And so it was phenomenal. And naturally, we filmed him demonstrating this, and that was another DVD. And by this time, we'd been giving country living seminars at hundreds of locations across the country. And we were covering detailed topics in our seminars, things like that ranged from the biblical basis for preparedness to practical things like independent water systems and heating with wood and what to look for in land on a homestead and how to make your own home grocery, things like this. And so that we kept being asked for these classes to be put on DVD. So we put them on DVD. And
somewhere in the middle of all of those seminars, I met him.
That's right.
And I was able to join the team after they'd already produced quite a number of the DVDs that you've already mentioned. But we also, while we were engaged, actually, we produced a DVD together on hydrotherapy and natural remedies.
Because you had extensive experience at numerous lifestyle health centers.
Yes.
In hydrotherapy.
And hydrotherapy was one of my passions, along with massage. And so we did a DVD on hydrotherapy just to teach you how to use these old-fashioned remedies in the comfort of your own home. So many people have no clue how to do them, and they're so simple and so easy.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, it was after that, though, that we started, we continued doing seminars for a little while until we had kids. But
and then about that time, there was a lot of interest in how do we preserve food.
Well, after we got married, that was one of the first questions that we had was, okay, now we get to start our own homestead. How do we put together a food storage plan? And so we searched around, and I found a calculator online and plugged in how many people in our home and all of that. And it spit out this long list. And I was just like, no, we don't eat that much rice, but we do eat way more oatmeal than what was on the list. And I realized it just wasn't going to fit. And so over the next several years, we learned or put together our own food storage plan, which has worked wonderfully well for us.
And we've learned from others that it was quite revolutionary to them.
Yes, when we started sharing how we set up our food storage plan. Anyway, so we made a DVD on food preservation, starting off with figuring out how to, figure out what you need to put in your food storage plan, and then all the different ways of preserving food, from canning to dehydrating and culturing and curing and root cellaring and all of that. That was another DVD that we put together.
Yeah, that's right. And there's more we could tell you about, but we won't take the time to tell you all about all of them. Needless to say, for years, we gave seminars across the nation and spread our DVDs far and wide, trying to teach as many folks as possible how to become as independent as possible for their basic necessities. And I can't tell you how many folks have told us that they learned so many essential skills on these DVDs that really enabled them to do what they did. It was
so many testimonials. In fact, you produced a DVD at one point where we collected a number of stories from people who had
go around and film their setups and their
and
systems and all of this, and they'd tell their story and all of that. Yeah. But then the DVD era came and it went.
That's the truth.
And now, I don't know about you, but even in our high-tech home that we have, it's kind of problematic when we need to look something up on a DVD. I mean, first we got to find a player.
I was going to grab our clunky old DVD player so I could be like, and this thing is the only thing we can use to play our DVDs on now.
I think we've got one in the house.
Yep. We do.
And here we were in the DVD business, but we've got one DVD player in the house, and it's got to be hooked up to a computer. And then we have to sort through our bookshelves and find the right DVD set. If there's something that we're working on here on our homestead where we are like, what was it that Bob Gregory or Bob Jorgensen said about this kind of a pest or dealing with this kind of an issue or whatever. Then we got to find the right DVD set, and then we've got to start the process of scrubbing through DVD after DVD to
hours and hours of content.
to find the right spot that we're looking for. And that's assuming that we know what we're looking for.
Yeah, if we can remember that one thing that he said, I can't remember what all it was. I need to go find it.
We know it's there. We know to look for it. We're just trying to find it. And that's assuming that DVD hasn't gotten scratched or broken.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a labor-intensive process, even for us, the ones who produced these DVDs.
Yeah.
And one area in particular that our audience was grappling with was off-grid power systems. It's a big topic that wouldn't be practical to cover thoroughly on DVDs. We had many requests
for
DVDs,
content.
But it was just going to be too many DVDs to give the level of depth that we wanted to give. So we ended up producing our first online course, and it was on this topic called Off-Grid Boot Camp.
Yeah.
And it was, and as far as we know, it still is, the only course that teaches complete newbies how to do an accurate system design, how to choose the right equipment, how to use and maintain it for maximum efficiency, and how to save thousands of dollars when setting up a off-grid solar power system. We really ended up liking the format of an online course because it broke these topics into small pieces that were easy to find, and everything was organized nicely, and there were no DVDs to get scratched or lost, and no more scrubbing through DVD after DVD and all that to find what you're looking for. But even after DVDs, even when they were the rage, there were still shortcomings that we could see over the years, issues that we didn't know how to resolve with the tools that we had at the time. For instance, I can't tell you how many folks would be working hard to make things happen on their homestead, and then they would hit a wall or just be confused to know what direction to go. Most of the time, they didn't have anyone in their circle that was knowledgeable enough or that they trusted enough to ask questions. So they'd end up emailing us just trying to get some direction or tips to help them out. And for years, I tried to keep up. It was, I would.
I know.
I tried to keep up.
He's got a heart of gold, and he wants to help everyone. And we both do, really. And he would spend so much time just sitting there answering email after email.
And it was fun.
It was fun. He enjoyed it. That was part of the problem.
But the problem was that we weren't independently wealthy, and I had to make a living too. So I couldn't spend hours a day in detailed correspondence. And it was really distressing because, like you said, our hearts are in this, and we want to help folks through this process so they can be successful and actually take action.
That's right.
So there we sat for several years while I took a remote job for a tech company. It was the best job I ever had. And but 1 year ago, our hearts were really stirred. What's going to happen when the powers that be use the next crisis to make yet another power grab as they've done before? What's going to happen to our friends who are still dependent on the system? So many folks are trying to get their family prepared, but it seemed like inevitably they would only get so far. Maybe they'd make their move to the country, which is a big first step for sure, but that's where it would stop. Or maybe they'd put a wood stove in their home, but they were still dependent on the system for water and food, or whatever the case may be. There was no one to help them through. And to each of you who wrote in during those years, I want you to know that your situation has been on our hearts. Even if you didn't hear back from us, it wasn't that we didn't want to or that we didn't care. It's just that we couldn't surround it. And so for the past year, we've been stewing on how to solve these problems for you and help you get off bottom dead center so you can start making progress again in your path to preparedness. We heard you and we hear you. You're needing help sifting through this mountain of information that's out there everywhere. Yes. And, conflicting information and all these things so that you can focus on the one thing that you need to work on first and come up with a plan of action to make that happen. And then you're needing reliable information that'll show you how to most effectively work on that one thing that you need to be focusing on right now. And when you run into questions or you hit a wall, you need a quick and easy way to get answers. And sometimes that means having someone knowledgeable to talk to. And then on top of that, many of you recognize that you're having trouble following through on your good intentions. I mean, New Year's resolutions, for instance. And so you need some friendly accountability to help you keep moving in the right direction. And when the going gets rough, it would make all the difference in the world to have like-minded friends who are on the same journey as you are to cheer you on and help you figure it out. So we hear you. And so I quit my job in May, and we've been working steadily on this since then. And when it all came together, all these pieces, we could hardly contain ourselves. It was the Ready Life Academy was born, and it includes each of these elements. You'll get focused, and you'll be able to make a plan of action at the very beginning. Then our entire content library is going to be at your fingertips to teach you what you need to know. All those DVDs that we mentioned and more, plus our entire library of courses are accessible on any computer or phone. You can find what you need and get concise answers to your questions with our amazing Smart Search function, where you can just type in questions and it'll help you with concise answers and point you to the right resources that it pulled those answers from and things like that. And then accelerator events provide friendly opportunities for accountability so that you get stuff done. And our community of like-minded friends are there to cheer you on and help you through the challenges that you're going to face. And we want to give you, our podcast listeners, the opportunity to get in at the very beginning so that you too can experience what it's like to get focused on your most important items, to make a plan of action and get the info that you need to make it happen and do it right the first time, to get your questions answered, to gain the accountability to stay the course, and to experience a like-minded community that helps you keep your head in the game and shares its collective experience with you.
Right now, we're actually running a really special offer for the founding members of the Ready Life Academy, and it ends at midnight on the 14th. So we don't ever plan to run this special again. This is for just the founders, those first people who get in and get to experience this. If you're looking to get your family prepared this next year and you want to make it actually happen rather than just talk about it, then hop on over to thereadylife.com/academy. That's thereadylife.com/academy. And we'll tell you all about it there.
Right. So I hope you've enjoyed this little story of a little history, a little behind the scenes stuff, and where, what kind of led us to this point, and why this is such a big deal. And we are really, really excited about the opportunity where we can actually be able to help you through each step of this journey and make this most effective, where you can take action and actually make things happen this next year.
And the really exciting part is that we're not done with our journey yet.
That's right.
And as he's been sharing over the last, 25 years of experience, he was sharing how they would run into a challenge and then they would find somebody, and guess what? We'd haul our cameras and equipment and go film it. Well, we're not done with that yet. That's still happening. We're still learning. And we're now asking you or inviting you to join us on this journey in the Ready Life Academy.
You're going to find challenges, and now we get to solve them together.
That's right.
Put our collective heads together and try and find solutions. So once again, hop on over to thereadylife.com/academy and take a look, because we really, really want you to be in a position where your family is as prepared and independent as possible, and where you can make steady progress towards that goal. It really is a journey, friends. And so we want to help you each step of the way. And we appreciate you joining us on the podcast today, and we'll look forward to chatting with you next week.
That's right. Thanks for joining us. Bye.